Hey there. Welcome to Lead Fearlessly, Strategies of Confident Women Leaders, the podcast that will empower you to unleash your inner strength and embrace leadership with confidence. I'm your host, Katie Winchenbach, and I'm excited to have you join us as we dive into the experiences of extraordinary women who've shattered glass ceilings and redefined success on their own terms. Get ready to be motivated, challenged, and equipped with the tools and strategies to lead fearlessly in your own life and career. I am thrilled to be joined today by Ramatu Kandakai. Ramatu is a personal branding consultant. She has done an incredible amount of work working not only with folks to work on their personal brands, but also has held some really pivotal marketing roles at really renowned companies where she developed an experience in brand strategy. So I'm thrilled to have her here today. Ramatu, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
To kick it off, I'll have you briefly tell our audience about your journey to where you are now and really how you became a leader in your field.
It's so weird because it's like being called a leader. I take it with honor, but I feel like I'm still learning, honestly. My journey is one with a lot of twists and turns. Like I honestly got my bachelor's in communications and I didn't even know, and it sounds bad, I didn't really know what marketing was, okay? And this was way back. Like I look more youthful than I am. And so I started out landing the role in marketing. It was a marketing assistant role. It was like at an architecture firm. And then it actually had a lot of elements of like business development, but it showed me how to package, basically package messaging and design to sell a product or service. And so I knew I liked the design element and the messaging part, but I wasn't tied to this like sales development, business development sales part. And then I had the opportunity also to work in like the activation space and do like, promotional work, working with different like beverage brands. And I was like, okay, I really like this. I really like this part of marketing. It's fun, understanding the consumer, making these experiences. But then I just noticed there was this disconnect when it came to like strategy. And so I had the opportunity to move into consulting and had an opportunity to have a role that had a lot of elements of marketing, had some elements of like business development and knowledge management. And because this organization was constantly acquiring other companies, my role really required me to really understand the brand and how to translate that in order to hit, sales goals or business development goals. And so for me, I really liked that consulting really shaped my journey because I started to understand, okay, how do you come up with the business case? How do you package and brand it in order to win the bid or whatever that was, we'd say. And so that really allowed me to say, okay, I really like this thing called marketing. I really, really like strategy and communicating and, really crafting this brand story, but I have some gaps that I want to fill. And so I moved into getting my MBA with a concentration in marketing. And that really helped me to see, what does marketing look like? How does it really help to build a business and sustain a business? And during this time as well, I had the opportunity to work in tech. And that's when I got to see the digital and fun side of marketing. But because it was tech, I did a lot of the lead generation, sales enablement. So I knew that was something I was just not really like tied to. And then after that, I moved into roles back in consulting, even worked at a startup, and then moved into working in brand management. And all these roles just showed me that, okay, I like marketing, I like brand building, not a fan of like working closely with sales or driving sales, but continue to get roles that really allow me to really shape the perception of what the consumer sees and really influence their actions. And so that's kind of how I got to, where I'm at now, where I'm really honed in on brand strategy and super focused there because when I was trying to figure out everything in marketing, everything was just always changing and it became overwhelming to keep up with everything. And I found that brand strategy is like the foundation of everything and it ties into my skill sets, my interests, And so that's where I'm at today. But it was a lot of trial and error. I basically could say I worked in like almost every different part of marketing. I just didn't work on any real like agency side things, but that's how my journey really happened and is continuing to grow for sure.
That's perfect. I love what that really illustrated is the winding nature of your path. And I think that's really important because a lot of times as leaders, we think we need to have a very linear path to where we're going. And so I love that your story really highlights that it's okay to take these twists and turns and take time to figure out what it is that you like about each position and play into those strengths that you have.
Yeah, it's definitely a winding road, and marketing is just so confusing. And I think you kind of just get bucketed into one thing and then you just go with it because that's what you're told or that's how you're led. And so unless you have that direction, it's kind of confusing and you kind of have to just figure it out.
And how did you really figure out what are my strengths and what are the things that I like about each position?
It was just trying it. Like, I know for me, being in, as I mentioned, like the activations, I was like, this is fun. And I know I'm like working on a consumer brand, for instance. But then I know I like structure, and what really gravitated to me towards, what I really liked about starting out in consulting is because there was just structure and like framing your business case and building your story and having like, how are you going to execute this? And I didn't realize how impactful that was going to be throughout the rest of my career. So I really liked that because there was just frameworks and structure. And I was like, this is how it's done. And I really, really liked that. Even when I worked in tech for a little bit, and I really liked the digital marketing. And I was like, this is fun. This is exciting. This is innovative. But then I knew I didn't like, really, really like working super closely to sales and being like this sales enablement thing where it's like, hey, like make this look pretty or just throw it at me, that type of thing. So I knew that was something that I didn't like. And because I was so, really gravitate towards strategy, I knew I wanted to stay more high level. Also, I knew keeping up with marketing was something that was exhausting. And so when I finished my MBA, I was like, what part of marketing just stays the freaking the same? Like, what can I was just like, I can't keep up with all these changes and trends and this and that. And so I was like, brand strategy, understanding what your brand stands for, understanding who your consumer is, and just making sure that you're continuing to create touch points so that they love your brand. And so I was just like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to stick to this because I was just like, once I got my degree, I still felt like I was just doing so many different parts of marketing. And I was just like, I need to pick one. I need to just pick something. What's something that's safe? And so that's how I kind of got into brand management because it was something that matched my recent endeavors and, my MBA. And then it was something that allowed for like structure and stability. And so that's how I landed that. That's why I was at consulting at EY, working as a brand and marketing consultant, just getting those those frameworks in place. So that's kind of how I found what I liked. It was more so just like trying things out and then making a list. And I remember I would even like pull dream jobs and create a folder. And I'd be like, okay, why do I like this job? And I continue to highlight until I started seeing patterns. And that's how I would start to just mix and match and figure out what I liked and didn't like. And I talked to a lot of people. Before I got into brand management, which is an extremely hard industry to get into if you don't have an internship, I talked to like over 80 plus brand managers at different companies like all over the nation. And I would ask them real questions. I would say, describe to me a current project you're working on. Describe to me like what you like and don't like about your day to day. I would say, walk me through like what you did last week, So those are the really specific questions that I would ask so that and the next brand manager I would talk to, I would have some reference points and then I would build upon that. And so I could feel like I, understand the role. I'd ask them systems and platforms are they using? And then I would go ahead and do trainings on that. And so that's kind of how I like filled in skills gaps. That's how I kind of found out what I liked and didn't like by just talking to people, a lot of people.
And how did you go about reaching out to these people? I know a lot of us think, yes, it would be great to talk to these people, but if you don't know them and you don't have them in your network, it can feel really intimidating to reach out and invite someone for that conversation. What strategies did you use when you were doing that exploration?
Research. So I feel like I have a really high, I guess, open click rate. I don't know what you call it. I use LinkedIn and the tricks of the trade. Okay. So, the biggest thing I did was I would research their personal brand. I would find their name. I would go on their, LinkedIn. I would look up any podcasts or anything that they're doing outside of their job. I would Google them. I would listen to the podcasts that they've spoken on. I would see if they've done any speaking engagements, if they're in any press. And I would use that in that little pitch, like personal invite. And I would say like, hi, I really enjoyed what you said about X, Y, and Z. My name is Ramatu. I'm looking for this and this. I would love, let's connect and chat, and I would leave it like that. And a lot of times I get responses. I reached out to like the CMO of a really large CPG company. And I had listened to one of her podcasts, and she said she was really big on mentoring and helping other Black and brown girls. And so I used that in my pitch, and she responded to my message, and we had a phone call. And I remember people being like, whoa, how did you do that? And I was like, I did my research. And so, I mean, it wasn't like every single person I reached out to responded, but I honestly think I didn't get a lot of rejections. I think because I reached out to people, I wasn't reaching out to recruiters either. So I think that was it too. Like I would reach out to people, then they would give me insight, and then I would get referred. But I was always reaching out to people and researching them.
And you brought up in that answer looking at people's personal brand and using that to start a conversation with them. So tell me a little bit about what does it even mean to have a personal brand? Because I think folks a lot of times think of brands as something that companies have as opposed to something that all of us have individually.
Yeah. So I know it sounds like so cliche. I'm like, you are your brand, but it's the truth. Like, what makes, so basically we all have different fingerprints. We're all different people. Your personal brand is just that perception that you shape. It's like what people say about you when you're not in the room. And so it embodies your personality, your values, your passions, your skill sets, how you look, how you dress, all that comes into play for what makes you who you are. And so your brand is kind of just like, how do you exude that when you walk into a room? How do you exude that throughout any area of your life with your friends or family? And so I looked at people's personal brand per se digitally. So it's like, okay, how are they, what are they projecting online? How are they communicating? How are they showing up? And so that's how I did my research. I looked at their personal brand. I say that because it's segmented from their employer brand. So I feel like LinkedIn, unless someone really puts themselves into their page, it's going to represent their employers and how they show up for their employers. So that's why I used Google to look into what else are they doing. I would even say go on LinkedIn and see what their email is, or find like an Instagram handle, and even go to social media or Facebook and see if they have a business. Sometimes I'd see if someone had a business, and then I would just, look into the activity and things they're doing there. But I would do my research. So I'd feel like I knew the person because also you have to think about it. You're reaching out to someone to talk to them, and you want it to be an enjoyable conversation. So a lot of times too, I would look at people's personal brands to say, do I even want to talk to this person, or will we be able to connect? And I would use my research to have connecting points when we chat, so that they notice that I did my research too.
For the women listening into this podcast who are rising women leaders and are really looking to advance in their careers and move up, get promotions, potentially get new positions, why is it so important to have a strong personal brand?
So your personal brand, like I said, is you, and that makes you unique, right? And so when you're looking at promotions, you want to stand out, and you want someone to say and you want people to have a really good feeling about you. And so that's what makes it important. You can't just do the same thing like someone else and have that be how you'll get your promotion. Most of the time, it comes down to if the person likes you. That comes down to how you're showing up, how you're leveraging your brand to increase your credibility, your likability, and your trust. And so that's why it's really important. Your personal brand is what makes you memorable. Like, for instance, if you know that, and it really honing in on your strengths and what makes you. So if you're like someone that is really analytical, leaning into that and doing projects and showing that skill set, or if you're someone that is very passionate about, maybe you're really passionate about a certain topic area and you put on a retreat for your company, or you have you talk about an all hands on call, different ways to just show that you not only can do the job as it's presented in the job description, but that you can add something else to it is really important.
If you had to give your top personal branding tips, just a few maybe quick things or even more in-depth things that everybody can do to just increase their personal brand, what are those kind of must-dos for you?
Biggest thing I'll say is I'm going to debunk the misconception that you have to be online. You're a person, as I mentioned, your personal brand is you. And last time I checked, you don't need to be online to be you, right? And so, like I would say, just do what you like. Like don't try to change to fit into a box. If you know that you are the shyest person in the world, that's okay. Like you need to the step one is being okay with who you are, because the biggest thing you should not do is try to be someone else in order to say, I can get this job or I can do this thing. So that's what I would say as one. So identify that and then play to those strengths, and understand that it is a strength. And then second, I would say is like, know what you want to attract. Do you want this new role? Do you want to be an authority in a space? Do you want to amp your skill sets? Whatever it is that you want to brand yourself for, have that clear, and then know who the decision maker is or who you're trying to influence, and know what their behaviors are, where they will be, and how they communicate the best. And so I say that too, because knowing what channels, what medium works best, online or offline, is what works, and what works for you is how you can really brand yourself to the best capacity. So if you're someone that really isn't a social media person, but you know that you're outgoing and you like to attend events, and find the events that the decision makers that you, or the opportunities that you're trying to attract are, and create an action plan for that and get to where you need to be that way.
One of the things that I always find really interesting when we talk about being true to yourself, finding your strengths, leveraging your strengths, is the fact that I think it takes a lot of confidence to be able to own, hey, I'm a really shy person. I do better on social media versus in person, or vice versa. How have you, as your career has grown, been able to build that confidence in yourself to embrace your authentic personal brand?
It took a lot of time. I will say, I personally hate the sound of my voice. Like everyone was like, oh, you should do podcasts. And I was like, no, I hate the sound of my voice. And so I've come a long way. I'm here with you now, right? And so I remember that's the biggest thing, is like knowing that, for me, it was just like, I know what I want to get. I know I want to be successful, and I know that it's going to take me stepping out of my comfort zone. And so I took baby steps. And what I like to tell people is to take baby steps. So for me, I started doing Clubhouse during the pandemic. And because I always knew, I was like, I want to be a speaker, or no, I was like, I want to get better at speaking. I knew it was just a skill set I wanted to get better at. Because in business school, I remember I would practice for like 4 or 5 hours just for like to talk for 10 minutes. Like I had really bad, I don't want to say stage fright, I don't know what it's called, but I just knew it was something that I wanted to come more easily to. And so I just started doing Clubhouses, but talking on things that I felt very comfortable with, marketing, getting in rooms and talking about things that weren't marketing, and just getting comfortable talking and building that muscle. And I remember I did like 50 plus. I think I was on this like marketing happy hour once a week. And then I was doing all these stuff and I was just speaking. And I think I did like 50 in the year 2020. I did like over 50 Clubhouses, probably more. And that helped me to get really comfortable talking on the fly. And so I would say like baby steps. So that was one. And then I think after that, I started doing, I think I did like video podcasts and those type of things I started doing. And then I just started speaking in person. But I think I started out, maybe on a panel first and then getting into like workshops. But I didn't just say, oh, I'm a speaker and jump like, into the deep end. It took years. Like I'm talking about me being super nervous on my first Clubhouse. I will never forget it. It was this tech room. And there was like 300, 400, it was so many people in this freaking room. And it was like a line to get in. And I remember my palms were sweating and my voice was crackling. And this was just a Clubhouse, and I was so nervous. And I remember like, I would have like anxiety attacks, like just to do like Clubhouses. And it's not like that anymore. So that's the advice I would give is like baby steps. I say, if someone wants to they know they want to do social media, but they're like, you know what? I'm just really, it's not in me, or I know I want to do it. It's an interest of mine. I know I need it for, what I'm trying to do, where my audience is. So just start by going on social media daily. Start by maybe liking or commenting, start by listening in on let's say an audio group or something. Or let's say one of the things I used to do too is I'll record videos and not post them, but just getting into the act of, speaking at a camera, watch my videos over again. That helps too. Some people say that doesn't help, but I say it does. But yeah.
I think what really stands out to me is the idea of taking baby steps, because sometimes we feel like we have to just go for it. And if you're not making significant moves and you're not just diving right in, that it's not worth it. So I love that you were able to take those baby steps and do something really significant.
Yeah. I think that, we all know that like comparison is a thief of joy. And I find myself doing that a lot too. I've gotten much better, but yeah, like don't compare your race to anyone else's, and give yourself grace. Like even if it's like, you know what? I went on LinkedIn for 5 minutes today, or I actually commented on a post. Like that is an amazing step. The hardest part is that you stop or you don't start, and it's just like continue, keep going. And you'll see things will get so much easier if you just keep going, take, another step every day or even every week. Just give yourself the grace and keep the momentum going.
To wrap up our conversation, I want to ask you one of my favorite questions. If you could give one piece of advice to your younger self when you were starting in marketing, when you were learning, all of these things that you liked and what you didn't like, what would that one piece of advice to your younger self be?
Oh, that's a good question. I didn't realize it until very later on that people are only going to give you advice based on their experience. So I think I always took people's advice as like facts, and it was like, okay, this is what it's supposed to be because they said it. And you know how, let's say you go to a doctor and always like get a second opinion. I get a second opinion with different sources, but like and diversify. And I didn't really start to diversify the people that I reached out to for advice until very, very, very late. Also, like, I'm at a place now where I'm in a space where I'm spiritually aligned in certain areas. And so I wish I had that foundation earlier too.
Ramatu, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing all of those incredible insights.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
To learn more about Ramatu's work and to sign up for her newsletter, visit the link in our show notes. Thanks for tuning in to Lead Fearlessly, Strategies of Confident Women Leaders. If you've been inspired by today's episode, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with a friend who could use a confidence boost. Remember to subscribe so you won't miss out when we drop our next season. And if you found our conversations valuable, please leave us a 5-star review. Your support helps us continue to amplify the voices of incredible women leaders and inspire more fearless female trailblazers.